Hello there, I'm Jamie McPrimmon.
This is Holden, I'm Hatter, and welcome to Drunk Doctor Who, episode number 130, where we talk about the 130th story of Doctor Who,
Which is
The Five Doctors.
The
Yay.
Five Doctors. And to do the recap, we have our very own, welcome to the stage, guest star Patrick Troughton.
He's dead.
Oh, our very own guest seance, channeling the spirit of Patrick Troughton.
What are you drinking today?
Today I'm drinking twisted tea. What are you having, Hatter?
Captain Morgan's sliced apple. Yay.
Hey.
Alright, okay. Since this is the 60th anniversary in 2 months of Doctor Who, it's only fitting that we hit an anniversary ourselves with the 20th anniversary special, Doctor Who, The Five Doctors. Uniquely in classic Who, the original run, this is the only special that falls between seasons.
Oh.
There are a lot of them in the 21st century, but in the classic run, this is the only special like that. It aired on the 25th of November of 1983, the closest they could get it to, the actual anniversary of the 23rd, while still being like on a Saturday, where it would air in prominence. And the nice part was with the 50th anniversary, it actually landed on a Saturday on the 23rd, the perfect 50th. It was really nice.
Yeah, that worked out.
Now this stars the first five Doctors. They had to cheat in a couple of ways. The first Doctor had passed away not that long after the 10th anniversary special, the three Doctors. Well, it was part of a season. It was still a special, but that was actually part of a season. And whether they did not have the defined specials at that point. So this is the big 2-0. And they recast the first Doctor with another actor. He's the only Doctor that they have properly recast. They haven't just used a body double or clips of. And they have done that twice now. This gentleman, whose name I forget, let's see, nope, can't remember his name. Anyway,
Whose name?
The actor who plays the first Doctor in this.
Are you trying to remember the actor's
Yeah,
name?
I can't remember. Anyway,
Good idea.
let's see. Anyway, so they have somebody who plays him, and he does a pretty good job. He's not as good as the next guy that plays him, but still the first Doctor is the only Doctor that's actually been recast. All the others only ever come back as the actual selves, the same actors, quick shot body doubles or clips of them. The other God bless you. God bless you.
Just trying to hold it in.
The other way they kind of cheated was the fourth Doctor, Tom Baker, who had Richard Hartnell. No, Richard Humdahl. That's the one. Richard Humdahl. Humdahl. He's the one who plays the first Doctor. Anyway, the fourth Doctor had just left the show only 2 years prior. And he had been on the show for so long, he did not want to reprise the role as of yet, which is really sad. And something that Tom Baker later on admitted to actually regretting. He regrets that he did not come to the show.
It would have been...
It would have been nice. So how much longer would it have been though? Who knows?
Oh yeah.
So they clipped him in by using clips of Shada, which at the time had never been aired.
Like deleted
because
footage, right?
Well, no, it wasn't deleted footage. It was, remember, we saw it, it was half real, half animation when they went back and completed it, finished it out with animation.
Was that
20, 30 years later. Right, that was the writer's strike.
Yeah.
So not the writer's strike, it was the whole BBC pretty much went on strike.
Oh.
So since that had never aired, it looked like brand new footage.
Mm-hmm.
So they take clips of that, and if you've seen Shada, you know exactly where they took the clips from, and they put that in here. And they made the Fourth Doctor trapped in a time vortex, which is how they got away with him not showing up.
Kind of like Hartnell during the Three Doctors.
Correct. Although that one was because Hartnell didn't want to leave his garden. He was out on the way out. All right. So interestingly enough, you have the first 5 Doctors all there, represented in some form or fashion, and the first, second, third, and 5th Doctors actively participating, while the 4th is stuck in the time vortex. We have lots of companions that show up, tons of them. Okay. So Tegan and Turlough are with the 5th Doctor, and so they're automatically in. Mm-hmm. They get to participate. The Brigadier comes along because the 2nd Doctor, looks like he's retiring, and there's this replacement, and the 2nd Doctor came to hear a speech, and the Brigadier gets caught up, and the 2nd Doctor gets time scooped.
Yeah.
All right. K9 and Sarah Jane Smith. By the way, I got out all the Doctors' pictures so we can represent them all. First Doctor.
The picture frames.
Yeah. 2nd Doctor. 3rd Doctor. 4th Doctor. 5th Doctor. I didn't get K9's out, but it's in here somewhere.
He's in there too.
Yeah, he's in there too. So anyway, this is very, very much the first one with the 3 Doctors. The first anniversary special was really sort of a nascent. Let's see what we can do, and they did it greatly. It was wonderful. But this one, and for the ones in the future, they just go all out. This has more companions and more enemies than nearly any Doctor Who story, with the possible exception the Pandorica opens for the enemies, and the possible exception of Power of the Doctor for companions. The most recent episode, Power of the Doctor, does really good service. It's Chibnall's best episode, and his only really, really good one. And man, I think he was just trying to make it part of the 60th anniversary special, because he didn't get to do the specials. Russell Davies did. But that was his last episode right before the 60th anniversary year. So I think he just basically tried to make that one part of the specials, because he did a really, really good job with it. And you see several older Doctors, and you see a lot of old companions. It's really cool. Yeah.
This was super large in scope. It's almost like for the first time, they decided to go through the whole
Rolodex,
call every single person up. The first, 12 people that answered, they said, all right, you're main characters. And then the other people that, waited a day to return the call, they're like, well, we already wrote the script, but we can still put you in a cameo.
Not exactly. I'll explain that in a minute, but you're close.
A lot of people went ahead.
So Sarah Jane Smith gets scooped up, time scooped.
Leaves
K9 does not, which is good, because K9 cannot have gone over the terrain. Alright, Susan, they don't show her getting time scooped, she just shows up.
Yeah.
Okay.
She runs into Hartnell and helps them escape the Daleks, and that's when the Daleks show up.
Yates is there and not there.
He shows up with Elizabeth Shaw.
With Elizabeth Shaw, but they're actually illusions. And we'll get to that later.
Which is the same thing.
Sophie and Jamie. They're also illusions. Zoe.
Was Zoe in there?
No,
was she in
her name's not Sophie. Her name's Zoe.
Direct.
You ordered down a Sophie. It's Zoe.
Do we have a Sophie companion?
No.
I thought.
And that's a good choice. Sophie's choice.
Oh. But
alright.
There you go.
Okay, so
all fixed.
Alright. Real quick, big fest for companions, also big fest for enemies. We have the Daleks, the Cybermen.
Raslan's warrior robot?
No. Raston. It's a Raston warrior robot.
Oh,
Raston.
Is Rassilon.
Or Raston or whatever.
Oh.
Yeah. No, it actually has nothing to do with Rassilon, oddly enough.
Really?
Alright.
Although everything else, including a harp, does.
Yes.
And a...
Alright.
Was it a cornet?
Raston, yeah.
And a ring
Alright.
and a tomb.
The Master and President Barusa. Okay.
Rassilon's toilet.
Oh. Yeti.
Oh, there's a Yeti, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not the Yeti.
So this is very much a greatest hits of Doctor Who. Let's just go all out and do everything. Let's bring back every companion we pretty much can. Let's bring back every enemy we pretty much... Let's just hit the high notes of everything. They don't bring back Dodo. They don't bring back the low notes, but they bring back all of the high notes, every last one of them, of enemies and of companions.
I can imagine how that went in the writer's room. They're like, should we call Dodo? Nah.
Dodo's extinct. Dodo's extinct. Okay. Nice story.
Yeah, they're thinking, how can we get all these people together? Oh, it's another game. Let's write a game episode again.
Here's an interesting story, though. Okay. The big loser here was Jamie.
Yeah, he wasn't in it very long. He lost out to... He wasn't, Troughton's companion.
Okay, they wanted to have the most iconic companion with the Doctor they were with the most.
Mm-hmm.
Which meant that Sarah Jane Smith was the most iconic companion for Tom Baker.
Mm-hmm.
But Tom Baker didn't want to do it.
Right.
So Sarah Jane Smith got bumped down to the Doctor she was with the least, the third Doctor, but she started with him.
Mm-hmm.
Which meant that the one they wanted for the third Doctor, the Brigadier, who was his most iconic companion, got bumped down from the Doctor he was with the most to the second Doctor, who he started with but was only there for one serial.
Yeah.
Which meant that the one they wanted to have for the second Doctor, Jamie, got bumped out. And got...
So he got downgraded to...
Right, and he got downgraded to an illusion.
Yeah.
He was the big loser because Tom Baker didn't want to come do this. Now, to be fair, Tom Baker is still alive. And the guy who plays Jamie McCrimmon is still alive.
Romana, too, was with the companions because she was with Baker.
She was with Baker.
She was
in
in
the shot
of
clips.
Really,
Yeah, Romana. Okay.
I'm sure we could keep going, but let's not.
Okay, so this is one of the anniversary specials, and they go all out. Like I said, on the 10th anniversary, they didn't really have the budget or capability to do it, but they did what they could, and it was really good.
That was good.
It was really good. This one, full out.
Great sets.
Because Britain was getting... The show was getting really popular, or had been really popular from the Tom Baker era. And the show was getting a generally speaking, better budget, although it starts to go really downhill from here. But yeah, they went ahead and did the big anniversary special, which they laid the groundwork for on the 10th anniversary. Alright, so yeah, all these companions and the first 5 Doctors and all these antagonists. So anyway, okay, just one episode, by the way.
Yeah.
One episode aired that day, 110 minute episode or something.
Hour and a half, wasn't it?
Huh?
I guess that includes all the credits
90 or 100 minute episode or something like that, yeah. And I love how they list the Doctors. It's the Doctor, and they've got all 6 actors, including William Hartnell, because the actual show, the show opens with a clip of William Hartnell going, "I will come back," from that best speech he ever did, you know, when he left Susan behind.
Yeah, before even the intro plays, we're greeted with, like, the second the timestamp comes up, screen goes black, it's Hartnell. Not the intro clip like you're used to.
And not his look-alike who plays him. It's the actual Hartnell clip from Dalek Invasion of Earth.
When he's sitting off
Susan, and he has his best speech ever. And I will come back. You know, I will come back. And then kicks over into the intro. So we have the Doctor, Tegan, and Turlo at the Eye of Harmony, or the Eye of Orion.
Right.
They're at the Eye of Orion in a very restful place that looks like Scotland.
Which always feels like it just rained. Because it's being bombarded with positive ions.
And they're being restful.
They could have just gone to Scotland.
I'm sure they did. A nice outdoor scene. And Turtle's like, I'm so... It's so restful. I'm so at peace here. And I was like, well, That's the positive ions getting to you. And then the doctor sort of looks like he has a stroke a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, something is being torn from me. And what happened was the first doctor...
The planet blew up. And he goes, oh, it's like a great many of the Force cried out. And all of a sudden we're silent.
Not Star Wars. This
Oh,
predates Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
Not this episode, but Doctor Who predates Star Wars.
He goes, a piece of me has gone missing.
Yeah. So the first doctor gets, we find out, time scooped at a time. And
Hartnell, running around.
Yeah, and the first doctor, not Hartnell, but the first doctor.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And you see a guy with a black glove placing the figure on a board divided into 5 parts.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of looks like a Trivial Pursuit wheel, you know?
Yeah. He's like, I got my history segment.
My entertainment, yeah. And then the second doctor, along with the brigadier, gets scooped out, and they get placed on the board. Then the third doctor, who's driving Bessie, gets triangled out, scooped out.
With Bessie.
With Bessie. Bessie never makes it to the board, but the doctor does.
Yeah. Bessie made it to the destination, though.
Yep.
The killing fields? What was it? The death zone.
Death zone.
Yeah.
A lot of this sounds
Gallifrey.
very Stephen King-ish. You got a death zone and the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
Very Stephen King-ish. Then it shows Sarah Jane Smith and K-9. K-9's like going, don't go. Very great danger. And Sarah Jane's like, what's about? The doctor. She's like, oh, rubbish. She leaves. Triangle comes and scoops her up. Time scoops her.
She gets teleported to just off of a cliff, right, as the doctor is driving by with Bessie.
Yeah, well.
And she goes, oh, I wish I listened to K9.
Why did I not listen to K9?
And Pertwee takes one look at her and goes, oh, you're much too heavy. Let me get the entire toe crank out.
Yeah,
I'm not pulling you up. He throws it in reverse.
Well, I mean,
backs her up off the cliff.
Here's what you have, yeah. So, yeah, she ends up being teleported to the death zone right by a ledge. And it doesn't look that steep, but she's not wearing good traveling boots because she's got some heel on it.
It's like
she was short.
It's like a normal ditch almost.
A little steeper there.
Like,
so she goes tumbling off of it. He throws her a rope, and then he ties it to Bessie, backs Bessie up using a rock as a fulcrum. Thank you. I thought fulcrum, and then I went, that's not right. I was thinking as a yeah, that's it. Pulley. Yeah, as a pulley, that's the word. Mm. So using a rock as a pulley, and he brings her up, and they go, yay, but you regenerated.
There's off-screen fact checker.
Yeah, that's our fact checker, my wife. Anyway, so they get together. Now, a bunch of this is hilarious because you have companions, more so than in the 3 Doctors. You have companions meeting bad guys they've never seen, like Susan meeting the Cybermen and the Master. You have companions meeting doctors they've never seen. And then you have a whole bunch of companions meeting old doctors they've never seen, old companions meeting new doctors they've never seen, and them talking to each other and going, wait, what, really?
Yeah. Every interaction is a fun little quip of
revelation.
You haven't met them.
Well, let me tell you about this guy. So the 4th Doctor, they take a clip of him punting down the Thames in Shada, outside of Oxford, or Cambridge, I forget which one, and they snatch him and Romana 1 up, or Romana 2, and then the 5th Doctor's, feeling really bad, and he gets taken into his TARDIS by Turlough and Tegan. And then he falls on the floor after he presets the coordinates on the TARDIS and fades in and out. Literally disappears, reappears, Cheshire Cat style.
Yeah, like with his inhales and exhales, he's fading in and out. And every time another doctor got captured, he goes, oh, another piece of his got missing. So that's
Turlough
laid him out.
Turlo checks his pulse, and he looks like this at Tegan. He goes, 2 hearts, remember? Oh. So anyway, essentially, all the doctors get thrown into what we find out is the death zone, and they run into a bunch of bad guys. We'll get there. Cut scene to the High Council chambers on Gallifrey. Mm-hmm. And you have the Chamberlain and Lady
Flavia,
yeah.
What?
Lady Flava or Flavia.
Sounds like a rapper's name.
It sounds like a part of the body you shouldn't mention.
Oh, a labia.
Yeah, a Lady Flavia.
And Castellan and Barusa.
Yeah, and then there's President Barusa. And President Barusa's like, I don't like getting this guy involved. And Lady Flavia's like, well, if the High Council's in unanimous consent, we can overrule the president's decision. He says, yeah, it's a silly rule or silly law. And turns out they send in the master. And yeah,
the master walks in dressed up like Count Dracula. He's this little turtle.
Well, that's one of his normal outfits. Yeah.
He usually looks like Count Dracula. It's normal.
A short Count Dracula. So he comes in and they're like, we want you to, he's like, okay, what do you want me to do? We want you to rescue the doctor. He's in mortal peril. He's like, why don't you send for the doctor? He's like, he's been taken out of time and existence. And he's like, whoa. It's like, can you imagine a cosmos without the doctor? Yeah. Because the doctor apparently saves so many people's lives and saves so many civilizations and worlds and rights time at the behest of the Time Lord so many times they really, really need him to do this.
Yeah. I got more the sense of the yin yang of, he's my arch nemesis. What
I'm talking about
be like without
the council.
Oh, the council.
The council really needs him around to do their dirty work and to fix things because he's good at it. Now you are correct on the master. The master's like, cosmos without the doctor, and he's like, what do I get in return? And they're going to give him a brand new set of regenerations, which is the very first time we ever hear of the Time Lords being able to give additional sets of regenerations, which comes into play later for the Doctor when he runs out.
Which also suggests that he's probably on his last one, the Master is.
Oh. Well, he was on his last one when he was the burnt corpse.
Yeah, that's why he had to steal someone else's
body. Then he
stole
someone else's body.
But he would still be out of regeneration.
Right, still out of regenerations. But he is out of regenerations. But the Master's proven himself resilient at surviving both here and in the future, even if he's out of regenerations. One time he turns into a weird spirit snake and jumps into somebody else's body the same way he stole this body.
Oh, great.
Another later time he's burned on a pyre, but they saved a vial of his blood and they managed to do a weird ritual to resurrect him.
He is Dracula. I knew it.
He's messed up. He's the Master. He's got some weird, crazy stuff about
it's a Horcrux floating around.
Yeah. He really should have been the Thomas Child. He should have been the Thomas Child.
So they go, we need your help because the doctor's gone. He's like, well, I'm going to need my little shiny black dildo back. And I'm going to need my escape route. Give me a return home beacon.
Well, they promised him all the regenerations. A new set of regenerations. And he goes, well, why me? And they're like, you're ruthless, cunning, experienced, resourceful. And he's like, okay. And merciless, I think. So they send him into the death zone and they give him the seal of the High Council of Rassilon as bona fides that he is there on their behest to help the Doctor.
Pertwee's not buying it.
Yeah, they also give him a little transmat beacon so he can pop back to the High Council. Now the funny part is they have the transmat in the High Council chambers. Yeah, it's not like in some near the guards or somewhere. It's actually in the High Council chamber. I think they didn't want to do too many sets. So anyway, he decides to go ahead. They zap him over. In the meantime, the doctor, the first doctor, bumps into Susan.
Mm-hmm.
And at first you see her silhouette. And I'm sure people at the time were like, wait, is that? Because so many people are showing up.
The set's like this funhouse mirror room that they're running.
Well, it's kind of the way the Daleks, some of the Daleks' original sets were, in those weird angles and shapes.
I didn't think they're on the original set.
No, remember the Daleks? They had the weird shapes that were sized for a Dalek and the kind of weird corridors.
I think they're already on Gallifrey because the Dalek wasn't used to the mirrors. Like, that's how they defeated him.
They absolutely are. It's in the Death Zone. I'm just saying it's not too dissimilar from a Dalek place, you know? Except the mirrors.
But the Dalek gets confused by the mirror.
No, not confused. He just shoots his beam and it bounces off till it manages to hit him.
Mm-hmm.
So the first Doctor bumps into Susan. Doesn't question how she got there, although she's like, "How are you here now?" Then they see a Dalek, and this is the only Dalek we see for the whole serial.
The whole one.
But we're striking the greatest hits,
and we see a lot of it. Yeah, more Dalek than we've probably ever seen.
You mean Cybermen?
No, the Dalek he gets blown open, and you see the Dalek inside of the machine. The Dalek. And he's all wriggling around and he's bleeding out. You're like, oh, you can see the Dalek inside of the Dalek.
Well, it's all inside the transport. We've seen...
Because it's alluded to stuff. We've seen them in like a vat before and they take them out and the lifeless blobs.
No, and we saw the thing in the original Dalek.
Yeah.
The Daleks episode that was crawling on the floor after they got out of the machine. We've just never seen it quite that explicitly.
Yeah, it was explicit.
Right.
Die.
There's an episode later in Series 1 called Dalek, where we see it very much like that. And, oh man, there's one called Planet of the Daleks in Series 6, I think, where you see a bunch of that explicitness in Daleks. And there's one in Series 4 called the Utopia trilogy, where you see a ton of companions, and you see Dalek Khan.
Dalek Khan.
Dalek Khan. He actually has a name. Daleks don't generally have names, but he actually has a name because he was one of a particular weird triad of Daleks. And he went through the time vortex and he went mad. But they keep him around because he can see the future, because he went mad. And Dalek Khan is very much a bit of what we saw, but just it's bizarre and nutso.
That's why you love the Daleks.
Yeah.
So we don't see a lot of them. Just kind of they make the one appearance. It's the cool, sleek black Dalek. It's blown open. You see it wriggling
by its own laser beam, because
that's all there is.
Yeah. Doctor and Susan manage to hide off to the side, and they manage to take the Dalek, push it. It panics. It fires. And the beam, they duck, the Doctor and Susan, the beam keeps bouncing around until it hits the Dalek and kills it.
And in the explosion, it blows a little exit way that they can escape through.
Correct, and they see the Tower of Rassilon. Now, like you mentioned earlier, everything in this episode is of Rassilon.
Yep.
The Coronet of Rassilon, the Tower of Rassilon, the Tomb of Rassilon, the Ring of Rassilon, the Promise of Rassilon,
the Harp of Rassilon,
the Harp of Rassilon, and in the past we've had the Sash of Rassilon. It was the Great Key, is what they called it.
Yeah.
It wasn't the Key of Rassilon; that was the Great Key. But yeah, all this the Black Scrolls of Rassilon.
Oh yeah.
And they've got all this of Rassilon. We
decided the Dead Zone was the bathroom of Rassilon. Canonically.
And remember, there were three that were the big triad in ancient Doctor Who lore. Omega, whom we've met twice. He came back. Rassilon, who we've met here properly, and we will meet again.
3 times.
What do you mean 3 times?
No, the Omega guy.
No, we've only met him twice.
Well, the second appearance was more like a phantom during one of the Doctor's nightmares. I guess that was during Trouton's nightmares. No, that would be Pertwee. He shows up as like...
If so, that wasn't really a meeting. But no, he's been there twice. Rassilon, this is his first real appearance.
Yeah. And he's not at all what I expected.
And he comes back as not what you expect. Oh. He's played by a James Bond.
Really?
In the future. The one before Brosnan.
Oh, that was going to be my guess. Was
the one before Brosnan?
Yeah, I was trying to think of his name too. Right, the brown hair. Name. I don't know. Brosnan would be cool. He was a great James Bond.
Hey, Sunshine, who is the James Bond before the latest one?
Pierce Brosnan.
Pierce Brosnan. Yeah, that's him. Yeah, Pierce Brosnan plays him.
I'm so confused.
I was putting the wrong name to the current Bond, but the name was the name correct for the Bond I meant.
Oh, it is Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, it's Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, well, that's great.
We've been drinking, sir. Actually, all day long. We went to the Saints game yesterday in New Orleans, and the Saints won. Yay, 16-15.
Oh, that was a great game.
Great game. And today we started out in New Orleans. And we went to the lounge, and then we were 4 hours in a bar in Dallas.
Yeah.
We pre-gamed this, and then we came home and continued.
Yep.
All right. So if we're not making as much sense, all right. So later on,
neither does the cereal. So.
Yeah. Well, later on, it's played by Pierce Brosnan.
They do reverse the polarity.
Yeah.
That's one very explicit
drink
reference they made. It practically turns to the camera to say
that. And they know
don't worry, I've reversed the polarity.
And they know it's all camp. They know every single thing in here. The single Dalek, the Cybermen, the Yeti that shows up. They know it's all camp, and they're loving it, and they're just reveling in it. Yeah. And the reverse the polarity thing was great. If only the sonic screwdriver was still around, they could have used that.
Yeah, you have Troutman pulling all this stuff out of his pockets and
jelly babies.
Yeah, he doesn't throw those. He hands them to his brigadier.
Yeah,
he pulls out this giant firecracker and he's like, "Oh, looks like a piece of dynamite."
Yeah,
it's like this is what a rubber duck out.
This is literally the greatest thing the fans of the time, which I was a fan at the time, but I didn't see this till later because at the time on PBS was showing all of the Tom Baker stuff. When it aired in the UK, PBS didn't get it for years to run in the US. They were running reruns.
No idea.
So I didn't see this until much later.
I had no idea PBS did Doctor Who.
Yes, in fact, back in the early 80s, Doctor Who was one of their big fundraisers.
Really?
Because they paid
possible due to viewers like you.
Yeah, they were like, look, this is our main capital show. This is one of our biggest ratings is Doctor Who. We know you love it, but we have to pay the BBC to air it. So they would do their telethons, and they would show clips of Doctor Who, and specifically ask for contributions to go to showing more Doctor Who, airing more Doctor Who. It was great, and it worked because everyone in America was like, this show's awesome. And Tom Baker was super big at the time. And it's like, this guy's great. This show's great. Yes, we want more, And home video was not a real big thing yet.
Right. It went from being the biggest thing in the British broadcasting channel, the BBC. It made it over and was the biggest one on the public broadcasting station continent across.
Yeah, across the pond.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
very popular show around Baker's days.
Yes, because he was so awesome as the Doctor. So anyway, he really made the show the same way Tennant made the modern stuff, or helped to remake it. Although, to be fair, there were 3 Doctors before Tom Baker, and there was Eccleston before Tennant in the current revival. So the first Doctor and Susan destroy the Dalek with its own laser, and then it creates a hole in there, and they see the tower, and he goes, "That's what I thought. We're in the death zone. That's the Tower of Rassilon." At the same time, eventually, the second Doctor and the Brigadier are wandering through, and the Brigadier's like, "What is this place?" The Doctor's like, "I don't know, but I've got a few a few strong doubt, suspicions.
So wait, one is Davidson and the other one is Davison?
No, Davison is the fifth Doctor.
No D. No second D.
No D.
Davison. Okay.
Davison. He's the fifth Doctor.
And we don't have a Davidson?
Correct.
Okay.
If I accidentally say Davidson sometimes, my apologies.
No, that's what I keep saying.
Oh, what you keep hearing?
In fact, I keep writing down Davidson.
Davidson. No, there's actually no S in his name. Look.
Okay.
The Peter Davison years.
Davison, okay.
Right.
I'll remember it this time.
Right. So, anyway, so the second Doctor and the Brigadier are going through the Death Zone, and the second Doctor realizes it's the Death Zone, and we gotta go to that tower over there of Rassilon, because that's where the stuff's gonna be.
Getting zapped.
Okay, third Doctor.
Mm-hmm. He toe hitches up Sarah Jane Smith.
And then the Master shows up teleported, and the Master, there's these lasers coming down in the Death Zone.
I have a question about what he says here. He comes across the corpse and he goes, "Oh, my predecessor." Was that to say that was who the Time Lord Council tried to send before him? Or
yeah, because he simply asked, "Why don't you send one of your own?" And the High Council goes, "We've sent 2 of them. They didn't return." So by predecessor, he meant somebody going forth for the Time Lord Council. So anyway, apparently this Death Zone, it's worse than the Hunger Games. You got lasers coming out of the sky at random.
Yeah, one shoots Bessie. She's a trucker though. She keeps going.
Okay, so this Death Zone was before the Time Lords gained their full power thanks to Rassilon, ignoring the modern Thomas Child crap. We'll get to that later.
It's all canon.
It is. But I could ignore some of it. So,
within the canon, there's some canon fodder in there.
There's canon. Right. So before Rassilon achieved his full power and straightened up the Time Lords and made them who they are now, the Time Lords had power and they could deal with time, but they were fairly barbaric and not the civilized, I need a collar this size kind of people, Yeah.
I've always kind of drawn back to that was... Because we've seen a little bit of that in Gallifrey and the exiles who had to be pushed out of the city. Mm-hmm. They were much more tribalistic.
Well, a lot of them left on their own accord, yeah.
Yeah, and some of them had more of that innate kind of sensory skills and kind of like Susan. So she's like a Time Lord who was more in touch with her more tribal, ancestral...
That's because she probably spent most of her time traveling with her grandfather, yeah.
Instincts, yeah.
So, essentially, apparently they were fairly barbaric, and they did a lot of Roman gladiator kind of crap, which is what the Death Zone is. Mm-hmm. You take bad guys, good guys, you just take people from all sorts of time periods, kind of like the War Games, remember that?
Yeah.
The 50s serial with the second Doctor. Mm-hmm. And they just lumped them all into the Death Zone and let them kill each other to see who survived.
Yeah.
Very gladiatorial. And essentially that's what this place was. But Rassilon locked it away.
Yeah, it became Rassilon's game.
Well,
and we find out why later.
Well, we find out what Rassilon's game is later.
But that's right when the Death Games kind of ended.
So Rassilon force fielded off this entire thing in a what's it called? The super locks you can't break. In Doctor Who, there's a word for it. And they're locks that you can't break for any reason whatsoever. Like deadlock or something, yeah. So anyway, it's behind a force field, and I can go there, but it is a dark, ancient past of the Time Lords. Mm-hmm. And when Rassilon was dethroned, when he was kicked out because he was too powerful and tried to do too much, but he was still immortal. Huh?
Allegedly.
But
so at this
he was still immortal. So they entombed him immortally in a tomb that he can't escape inside the Death Zone that he can't escape in that tower.
Allegedly.
Why do you keep saying allegedly?
Because they don't know. They don't remember. So it'd been so long since Rassilon, he said, this is all dangerous, and we could be playing Rassilon's game. And she goes, isn't he dead? And he goes, no, he was immortal. In fact, it's been so long, rumor has it that this and this happened. She said, wait, I thought Rassilon was a good guy. And he says, well, we like to remember him as through history.
This is the Brigadier they're bringing up these points.
Oh, it was the Brigadier that said that? Yeah. Oh, okay, I thought it was Pertwee with... Okay, so this is Troughton.
Most of it is Troughton and the Brigadier. I think...
Pertwee says something about Rassilon.
I think Sarah Jane, when they're driving, mentions one thing.
So they don't know if he was kicked out and exiled and entombed because he's a bad guy, or if what really happened, which we find out later, was that he took over like the barbaric games and turned them into Rassilon's games, and then they kind of died off, and we don't really know what happened.
No, I think Rassilon's game is that thing at the end. The Death Zone was not Rassilon's game. Rassilon's game is the ring.
He used the Death Zone for Rassilon's game, which was to weed out certain power-hungry Time Lords.
You may be right on that, yeah. So anyway, the third Doctor and Sarah Jane are driving around in Bessie.
Yeah.
And they end up bumping into the Master. The Master's like, and the Doctor was used to the old Master, Delgado.
Yeah.
Ainsley, he's not used to.
That can't be.
He's like, wait a minute. He stops, he reverses, he looks at him and goes, well, Jehoshaphat, it is you. Sarah Jane also knew the Master from the third Doctor. She did not know the Master wasn't around during the fourth Doctor's era until The Deadly Assassin, which is a serial after Sarah Jane left. But she didn't know him in the third Doctor's era.
She didn't know him as well as Pertwee did, which was to say as well enough not to pick him up.
Yeah. But so Pertwee goes back. The Master's like, hey, I'm here on behalf of the Council, the High Council of Time Lords. Like, no, you're not. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. He says, look, I have the seal to prove it.
I have a hall pass. He goes, oh, forged.
It's forged.
No, it's
or possibly stolen.
Stolen, then.
and he takes off, leaves the Master there.
Yeah, I also have this return beacon, and they use him in his dust.
Yeah.
She goes, well, we can't leave him. He's like, oh, yes, we can.
Yeah. Just watch me.
Or lasers strike to strike. The second laser knocks Bessie out for good.
Yep.
So they have to exit the vehicle, but the Master has already ran off over the hills because of the lasers.
Now this is hilarious because Bessie was there on the antimatter planet.
Yeah.
In the three Doctors.
Yeah.
Got transported over.
She keeps getting transported.
And then Bessie gets transported over here into the Death Zone on Gallifrey in the five Doctors. Yeah. It doesn't happen. It's the most iconic car in Doctor Who. It doesn't happen with any of the other vehicles, really.
Got old Bessie.
Alright, so that happens to the third Doctor. They leave the Master in the dust. The fourth Doctor, still in the time vortex. We're not going to see him again at all until he escapes.
Yeah.
Fifth Doctor wakes up. He stops phasing out. He wakes up and he says, oh, where are we? And he looks around, they do the scanner, and he realizes we must be in the Death Zone.
This is right when...
Yeah, the first Doctor and Susan's like, hey, look, the TARDIS. The first Doctor's like, awesome. And they go in and they walk in, much like Dodo did. Just walk right on in. And
he has a key.
And Davison, the fifth Doctor, still laying on the floor. The first Doctor looks at Turlo and Tegan. What are you doing in my TARDIS?
They're like, who are you? He goes, no, what are you doing in my house?
Yeah, and they're like, well, wait a minute. Who are you? He says, they said, no, this is the Doctor's TARDIS. Yeah. He says, I am the Doctor. And they're like, no, you're not. He says, I'm the original article, you might say. And
the real OG.
And they look at
it. Up some gang signs.
And they point at, fifth Doctor and goes, well, that's the Doctor. He goes, oh my. So I've regenerated again. There's 5 of me now. No. So he helps the fifth Doctor up, and he goes, no, which number are you? And he's like, oh, how many times you regenerate? 4 times. He's like, so there are 5 of me now. And then the first and fifth Doctors are debating on whether or not to head to the tomb of Rassilon to help the other Doctors and to fight this, or to play it safe and wait till they get help.
Yeah.
And they argue back and forth.
They like bickering. Yeah.
In the meantime, the doctors send Tegan and Turlo off to get refreshments for everyone, and they come back, and those two are arguing, and it's Turlo, Tegan, and Susan sitting in front of a small table, maybe about not too much bigger than this, having their refreshments. It looks like tea, maybe a martini for Turlo, it looks like, and they've got the little sandwiches you get at high tea, and they're just going to town. And it's like, finally, the doctor's like, I'm gonna go help. And they talk about the three ways to get into the Tower of Rassilon, which is the high point, the main entrance, and the low point.
Air, land, and sea.
Not exactly, but at least air, land, and land.
Air, land, and
like underground.
Watery tunnel.
So
they're all bickering. Troughton, of course, the least cerebral and statistic of the doctors, is just jovially, jaunting around, and he's made the most progress to the tower. He's with the brigadier, and he's reciting the rhyme.
The nursery rhyme. Yeah, about how to get in the tower, and he says, we'll go below. Yeah. And they enter in through the bottom entrance, and they're going through the tunnels, and they hear this sound, and it turns out it's a Yeti, because second Doctor and Yetis, what you gonna do? Like I said, we're hitting all the greatest hits. We've seen Cybermen. Mm-hmm. We need to mention that here in a minute, but there's Cybermen, there's Yeti, there's Dalek. Mm-hmm. Got to hit all the big ones. The Master. Mm-hmm. And of course, the High Council, the Time Lord.
Chameleon, nowhere to be found.
He doesn't show up for a bit, and only so he can leave. I told you this story about that. So the third Doctor gets caught in a crevice in the cave with the Yeti threatening them, and like you said, he takes all sorts of stuff out of his pockets. The whole thing Tom Baker did, and Troughton did. And finally finds this thing with a stick of dynamite.
He's looking for his loot, but then he remembered he left it in the antimatter zone. Yeah. He settles upon a... Because isn't that what he did last time to calm down the Yeti? He played his recorder for it or something? He's like, look, they're peaceful. I don't know.
The recorder was used for something like that, but I don't think it was the Yeti.
He didn't have his recorder, so he pulls out a stick of dynamite instead.
Yeah, it looks like some dynamite. Some crazy firecracker, and it scares the Yeti away.
It for like a second, and the brigadier goes, "Oh, you've angered it."
Well, and then the rocks come down.
Yeah, and then he goes, "Oh, we're trapped," and then Troughton points to this very obvious rear exit that they have on the set. Well, he goes, "Look, there's a slight breeze coming from this giant exit."
It's not actually giant. The door looks about yay tall off the floor. It looked like a really short door.
It was the cave entrance. They walk to the other half of the cave.
No.
It's pretty linear.
It's a door that's kind of like in the Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Where you walk up to that little door and you push it and they go in and...
It's unlocked, so it goes, someone wants us
to go in. So yeah, they go in. In the meantime... Davison goes out and he gets confronted, or the fifth Doctor goes out and gets confronted by the Master. Mm-hmm. And the Master's like, no, I'm here to help. And Davis's like, why do I not believe you? He's like, all the Doctors thought that the Master was the one who brought him there. Mm-hmm. And Davis's like, well, I can't show you the seal. It got taken by the third Doctor, but at least I have this return button. And then the Cybermen show up. And at the same time, Susan and Tegan, who had come with the Doctor, mm-hmm. the Doctor are watching the Doctor and the Master converse. Susan's never met the Master. She didn't know about the Master. She was 2 Doctors before him. But Tegan knows about the Master because she went through Castrovalva and all those deals. And she's like...
Castlevania.
And Susan's like...
Count Dracula.
Jean's like, well, that's his worst enemy. So she's like, why are they talking like friends?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, that's what worries me, you know?
Yeah.
And the master ends up getting shot by the Cybermen who show up.
Yeah, which shoots this rock, explodes. Davidson ducks it, but the master gets hit,
knocked out. In order to escape, the Fifth Doctor pushes the button on the return.
Mm-hmm. He goes whoop, 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 back to the High Council chamber.
Yep.
He goes, someone is doing all this. And they're like, well, we know. And he goes, but you don't know is someone setting us up. There's an informant. He goes, how could you possibly know that? And he's like, well, those Cybermen, where'd they come from? And they knew exactly where to find us. We weren't there very long.
So he opens up the return deal, and there's a
tracking homing beacon.
Yeah. So he's like, aha. And the Castellan's like a homing beacon. And the president of the Time Lords, Baruska, who has regenerated, it's a different actor playing him, he's regenerated. He's like, and that's pointed out very much earlier on.
Baruska, we've seen.
I think second, I might be wrong, it might be third, but it's pointed out very earlier on was like, yeah, your regeneration is not doing anything to help your temper.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
they get that in there pointedly.
Yeah. Barusa sees the homing beacon and he goes, why, Castellan, you were the one that gave
it
to
to the doctor, yeah.
He goes, it wasn't me. And he goes, search his chambers. And they come back with Rassilon's black scrolls. He goes, forbidden knowledge.
Forbidden knowledge. Black scrolls is like the Apocrypha of the Catholic Bible or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so they open it up and it catches fire almost immediately. He's like, and then
he picks it up, he goes to pick it up, and he goes, "Don't pick that up. It's a reason it's forbidden."
Yeah,
and it just bursts into flame. It's like you see.
So we didn't even know if they were the actual black scrolls or if they were just a prop. Yeah, just don't look at it because they're blank.
Oh, it was a prop. How much do you think that burnt prop sold for on eBay during the BBC's fundraiser?
You know, there wasn't eBay at the time, right?
They're like, fundraiser, burnt black scrolls of Rassilon. This burnt paper, you would use it as a paperweight on your desk.
If I could have an actual prop from Doctor Who,
Bessie.
Oh God, I love Bessie. But no. Let's say an actual, I don't know, some actual prop. Like this is the actual Tom Baker's sonic screwdriver that he used throughout season, 12. Or this is the key that Pertwee made for the TARDIS, that special key that Tom Baker used for one season and Pertwee used for like 2.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the actual one. Yes, I would absolutely love to have that and just have it. And
that would be your pick out of all Doctor Who?
No. Not out of all of it, but just to have something unique on the show.
What would be your one pick? The scarf. One of Baker's scarves. That'd be a good one. That one I bet was sold for charity.
Probably. Children in Need, probably. If there's any single thing I could have that would be an actual authentic piece, besides maybe an actual TARDIS, probably go with either like Tom Baker's sonic screwdriver or maybe K9.
Oh, K9's a good one.
Yeah.
I was going to say a Dalek.
K9. I'm trying to think of any other thing that would be that specifically unique and be that really cool. The only other thing, but I had nowhere to put it, would be an actual TARDIS console.
I was going to say the Baker's control console with the big red lever and wired up to where it actually opens like your garage door or something. And you flip it.
That'd be fantastic. But Bessie would also be amazing. To have the actual car would be phenomenal. Anyway.
Who Mobile.
Yeah, or
Who One.
Or like Tom Baker's jacket.
Oh yeah.
Not his 7th season purple one, but his normal one. And you just wear it out, and you just go places with it. People go, "Wait, that's a great replica." It's not a replica.
I don't think anyone would recognize.
It's not a replica. But something like that, you know? It's like in Ghostbusters Afterlife, the movie.
Uh-huh.
That's a great replica of one of those ghost traps. Wait a minute.
I would have Davison's wilted celery leaf lapel sprayed in all sorts of preservative chemicals.
Alright, the funniest one would be the Sixth Doctor's jacket.
Mm-hmm.
That insane hideousness. We're getting there.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. The Sixth Doctor? His?
No.
Who's the Sixth Doctor? Oh,
top left. That's seventh.
He has a hideous...
Right there, top left.
Oh, that one is hideous.
You have not seen
the question mark lapels.
You have not seen the half. It's the same lapel,
isn't it?
Same shirt, but you haven't seen his jacket. It was supposed to be blue, which might have looked decent, but it messed with the blue screen.
Oh no!
So they did it red, and red it's hideous.
Does he look like Santa Claus?
But one of the reasons I might pick that one is because most doctors are skinny. I'm not really skinny anymore. But he was not in the second season, and his jacket would probably fit me.
There you go.
He's a little more corpulent.
Me too.
Welcome to the 21st century.
You ever play Fable, that old Xbox video game?
No.
They had demon doors that you had to do little riddles to open, and one was a riddle for being corpulent. Yeah, and you just ate a bunch of pies. And the door would be like, oh, you're so wonderfully fat. It opens up.
Speaking of pie.
So I'm still looking for that door in my life. It's going to open wide up.
Speaking of pie, the doctor had taken off and gone back. And the Cybermen capture the master. And the master convinces them.
Speaking of pie.
Yeah. And the master convinces them not to kill him because they need him. Because look, it's Tower of Rassilon. You can take over the Tower of the Time Lords, but you need me to help you to do it. And there are there's the main Cyberman, who's the leader, who has the little black...
Cyber leader, yeah.
I don't think they use the term cyber leader.
That's what the closed captions were called.
Okay, but all the others have a little silver handle thing. His are black, which denotes him. And, yeah, go get yourself another one. So the master takes off and he says he's leading them to the temple or to the Tower of Rassilon, and they basically walk in the front gate. Not that long after the first Doctor and Tegan get there, because they left the TARDIS on their own after the fifth Doctor left the TARDIS with. No, the fifth Doctor left with Tegan and Susan. Yeah. Turlo was left at the TARDIS with the first Doctor and eventually Tegan, it doesn't show it. Actually, it's edited out, I guess. But Tegan and Susan make their way back to the TARDIS. So then the first Doctor leaves with Tegan. And the first Doctor and Tegan make it to the main entrance to the tower. While Turlo and Susan stay behind the TARDIS. This could have been an extra 10-15 minutes longer easily to help some of the editing and make it flow more smoothly. But I guess the BBC had the space amount of time they wanted it to be. Although remember, there is an enhanced edition coming out when season 20 releases in November on Blu-ray. In the Blu-ray box set, this will be included. So we'll probably watch that enhanced edition and see what the differences are. So the first Doctor and Susan, Tegan, make it in the building, and right behind them comes the Master. The Master says, I have some allies with me, hide. So the first Doctor and Tegan hide, and then in come the Cybermen behind the Master, and the Master has figured out how to get across. There's a red and white chessboard, an 8x8 chessboard, and the Master figures out how to get across because the Cybermen figure it's a trap. Why would they leave the front door open? And he goes, well, they didn't think anybody get past the death zone. They're like, I still don't trust it. And so the Master skips across the chessboard. He goes, hey, think Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade going across the specific places over the bridge based off the Greek letters. And then he skips back, and the main Cyberman guy is like, okay, Sergeant, lead the team across. The Cyber Troll goes across, gets to the 5th row, and all these lasers come out and kill him, this lightning. And the main Cyber guy's like, you betrayed us, you betrayed us. He says, no, I may have embellished a little, but I didn't betray you. And the Master sneaks and he takes one of the guns off one of the fallen Cybermen. And the Master's like, look, this is how you get across. And he makes these patterns almost like a chess knight across the chessboard. And the Cyberman's like, okay. And he starts making those moves. And he gets about halfway, but he's following the exact same footsteps that the Master did, so as not to get hit by the lightning. And then the Master turns, pivots, and shoots him with that cyber gun. So we've got like 6 Cybermen dead. And then out comes the First Doctor and Tegan. And Tegan's like, that's low even for you. And he's like, Cybermen. You know, yeah, they were going to die and they were going to kill us all. Now they're dead. And the First Doctor's like, well, how'd you get across? And he goes, it's easy as pie. And the Master takes off. Now, we did not have the scene where the Master learned this. He may have learned it through some lore, history, of knowledge, but there was a scene where this information was given to him. It was edited out, like the same one where Susan and Tegan make it back to the TARDIS to go back to the First Doctor and Turlo. Anyway, so pie, it's as easy as pie. And the First Doctor's thinking about it, he says, no, it's as easy as pi, the Greek letter pi. And Tegan's like, pi? And the First Doctor's like, don't you have any knowledge of mathematics? And she goes, oh yeah, it's the ratio of the circumference of the circle to the diameter of the circle is pi.
Speaking of pi.
Right.
We're still talking about pi.
Yeah. And so the First Doctor's like 3.14159.
And then he knew how to play hopscotch according to that.
It's a pi, but 3.14159, that's as far as I know. And he got to that, and then there's ... and there's 3 more.
259.
346 or
He
something
was
like that.
skipping
Yeah.
ahead into the.
But anyway, so and then he goes the application of it, and I don't know how he applied it, except it's Doctor Who knowledge. But it looks like he goes like a chess knight. It looks like he moves like a chess knight.
This square's 1. Well, if this square's 1, and you, I don't know.
Yeah, like he moves like a knight in chess. But anyway, he gets across.
Count over 3. Point.
Tegan gets across. So they've made it into the deal, and the second Doctor has made it into the tower. Mm-hmm. So back to the third Doctor.
Yes.
The third Doctor and Sarah Jane Smith are going through, and they're trying to traverse the mountains to get over the tower. Mm-hmm. And they've lost Betsy. They go up this mountain, they go down this mountain, they go up this mountain, they go down this mountain, and then they come to a cave. And outside the cave,
this is the most ridiculous robot of
all
time.
This was added to pad the time, and somebody was like, "We should have this," and they were like, "Sure."
Sounds great on paper.
I've seen this on the special features, and they're like, "Oh yeah, let's add that." It's a person in a full suit of nylon, not nylon,
little silver onesie.
Yeah, but it covers their face and everything, and I forget what that fabric is called.
Foil mask on.
What's that fabric? Yeah, spandex basically.
A silver spandex suit Tinfoil mask.
It's all within time body. And they are supposedly a Raston warrior robot. The deadliest killers in the entire universe.
Efficient machine killing.
Yeah.
Moves like lightning. And she says, I don't see any weapons. And he goes, pew, pew, pew. And he goes, his armaments are built in kind of like a plastic dude. Auton. He doesn't say that. But
the Autons are like one of the weird ones that did not show up. Because they were so...
They didn't show up.
Right. They hit the big greatest hits. But I think the greatest hits would have included the Autons, but they weren't included.
I'm surprised they fit as much as they did into an hour and a half.
Yeah, there was a lot in there, yeah.
And they made up this new, funky, really cool robot that's going to be a steeple moving forward. And
we never see it again.
We never see it. That was my whole question. To
be fair, if the Fourth Doctor had been in this, he would have been the actual focus. And he didn't want to take the focus away from the Fifth Doctor, which is one of the reasons he didn't do it. But... it might have been another half hour long, or how much would have been taken away from the doctors who were there.
This way, it really was Davison's kind of
right. And Tom Baker was afraid, having been so popular in the show for so long, and it was supposed to be about his Doctor that it would have overshadowed Davison. Correct. To his benefit, but he still wishes he had been in it some.
Yeah.
Right. So this robot leaps up Flashdance style and zoops and goes there and it goes here and it goes there.
You can literally picture the writer writing it out. He's like, it's going to be this really cool robot.
But this is what we had the budget for. There's a guy in spandex.
We're going to need someone really agile who can maneuver. So the costume is just going to be a spandex suit. They're like, this sounds great. He's like, yeah, he's going to throw darts and he's going to move like lightning. They're like, oh, how are we going to film that? And then they get to filming day. He's like, just jump up like this, and then we'll cut and we'll edit you. So it's just him prancing around like this and disappearing.
To be fair, the guy in the suit was in incredible shape. Really good shape.
That's why they cast him. They're like, he needs to be this agile killing machine robot. And they're like, how are we going to film that? I just edited it out. He's just jumping like this, and he disappears and reappears.
So the Doctor and Sarah Jane are literally just basically hiding behind a boulder. They're like, don't move, it'll kill us. Don't move, it'll kill us. She's like, well, what can we do?
I can't take much more of this.
Yeah, I can't take much more of this. And they're just like, and to be fair, Sarah Jane's relationship with the Third Doctor especially was a lot like that. She was more mature by the Fourth Doctor. Mm-hmm. But she was very much the nerves are going to kill me kind of thing during the Third Doctor.
Felt like some of the companions, we don't really know when we picked them up in time, but they kind of reverted a bit in terms of character development. Whereas Susan and Sarah Jane Smith were very much the damsels in distress again. They were filling that role. They were tripping over stuff. They were spraining their ankles.
We know we pick up Sarah Jane. Well, Susan looks older. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we know we pick her up later. Sarah Jane, we know they pick her up
properly on the timeline. Yeah.
You know why?
Because she was with K9.
Correct, and K9 was sent to her after the Fourth Doctor was done.
She goes, oh, hogwash, that Doctor can't be in danger.
Right. So, but that's how we know that Sarah Jane is somewhere during the Fifth Doctor. She was picked up in actual proper course as opposed to most of them.
Which is just a shame why we didn't get to see Romana kind of in the companion role, because she and Baker weren't in it at all, and it really
wouldn't have been Romana. It was going to be Sarah Jane.
Yeah, it left Sarah Jane Smith, and Susan is just tripping over everything and screaming and hurting their ankles, and that was their whole role.
No. To be fair, that was Susan's role in the original.
It still is.
They never developed her, and she shows up and she trips over a rock and sprains her ankle again. So anyway, but that's why she gets left in the TARDIS. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Tegan moves on. So anyway. So the Third Doctor is with Sarah Jane Smith, and he's like, we may have some help. And the Cybermen show up. Mm-hmm. And there's 6 Cybermen here. And the Raston warrior just tears them apart. They don't even get off a shot. He's
not one shot.
Shoot. These harpoon things come out. He throws like a... throwing stars at him, stuff like that. And then finally, the last one is like, he goes, and he chops his head off. And they're all dead. I mean, we had probably 13 or 14 Cybermen die during this.
13.
Yeah, that's what I thought. 7.
$1.
All right, 13 and $1
and one
Time Lord.
Castellan,
Yeah, Castellan. All right. Okay, so they get past
15 deaths in an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's pretty good. They get past that thing because it was distracted killing the Cybermen. They steal its accoutrement, its ropes and its little harpoon bits and all that.
Yeah. And
they keep going through the cave, and they're doing the whole Lord of the Rings thing. They're going up the mountains through the caves. They're trying to get to Minas Tirith and all that.
Yeah.
So
Tower of Doom.
The Tower of Doom. So
one does not simply walk in.
Yeah. So then they go and they end up at this big mountain above the Tower of Rassilon, kind of more or less even with it. And he makes a whip out of that rope, ties it to a boulder, or the mountain, manages to lasso a crenellation on the tower, ties it taut, and then they ride over real quick. You know,
like when they peak the mountain, Sarah Jane Smith takes one look and she goes, "Nope, where are we gonna do? Fly?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "That's a great idea."
So they come in through the top. The first doctor comes in the middle. The second doctor comes in through the bottom. They get over there just as they're about literally to get into the tower. A Cyberman looks like he's going, who has a spear in him, looks like he's going to cut the rope and kill Sarah Jane, and he just kind of flops over and dies.
Pretty anticlimactic.
Yeah, it's just funny.
That's right, because we kept going back. We were like, "Where's that 6? Was that 7?" I thought one was still alive. They go, "Oh, he's still out." No, there he goes.
He's dead.
And it happens once when he gets his head,
chopped off.
And then the other one just kind of claps. You go, "What? Okay, no, that's all 7.
In the meantime, the doctor. The president of Time Lords, Busa, what was his name?
Barusa. Yeah.
Barusa. He's like, "Oh, take Castellan away, guards. He had the Black Scrolls, and he's behind all this."
And then he doesn't kill himself by hanging a bullet to the back of the head.
Yeah.
He goes, look what happened.
He wasn't Arkansas-sided, no.
He was dangerous.
Oh, yeah, no. They basically, the guards take him out of the room.
They Clintoned him.
And he says, "Use the Mind Probe." Not the Mind Probe. And then you hear him scream. The doctor runs out of the room, and he's dead on the floor. And he looks at the captain of the guards. The captain of the guards, "What? He took one of the pistols. He was armed. This was necessary. We had to shoot him."
I like to imagine on the other side of the door, it was like the corrupt cop kind of thing where he pulls out a gun. He's like, "Here, hold this." And he goes, "Oh, okay." He's armed.
No, that's pretty much exactly what happened.
Or he just tosses it on the ground by him.
And you get that sense from the way, the tones that he takes, the captain of the guard. And the President Barusa comes out, and Dr. goes, "Saves you the hassle and the embarrassment of a trial." He says, "Yeah, well, these things happen." And yeah. So
it's hinted at that Barusa's the villain, right, behind everything, but they immediately want to kind of subvert those expectations. Yeah, so they're like, "Oh, what about Barusa? We're going to go find him. Well, he's missing now." And then the other Time Lord on the council, Lady Flava, or whatever. Flavia. Anyway, she goes, "Well, I'll go question the guard. I'm sure much can be learned from him."
Right.
So you're like,
and the doctor's like, "Well, I didn't go question the president."
Yeah.
So the doctor goes in the president's quarters, and he's not there. But this is Barusa, who you remember from The Deadly Assassin.
Yeah.
Loves little secret passages and stuff, and also especially from the one where he's Invasion of Time. Invasion of Time, where the doctor kept everything in his head and became president of the Time Lords, and
the Matrix.
Yeah, he went in the Matrix, and he had and he went through and he used those secret passages a lot from Barusa. Anyway, so The doctor figures out Bruce has a secret passage.
Because the guard's like, you didn't leave, I was on.
And he figures out it's triggered by the Harp of Rassilon. Has to be the Harp of Rassilon. And there's a painting on the wall that has the music sheet.
He's looking at this wall of Rassilon thing, and he's like, is it this of Rassilon? No, it's the Harp of Rassilon.
It says the Harp of Rassilon.
Yeah, there's a picture of Rassilon playing the harp. He goes, what melody would it be? And it just so happens to be the music notes in the painting of Rassilon. He goes, oh, obviously it's Rassilon's Song of Rassilon on the Harp of Rassilon. She'll open up the secret passageway of Rassilon.
Right. Like I said, this whole thing is super campy, super awesome. So he goes in, and turns out the person who's been manipulating everything is Lord Rassilon, wearing the coronet of Rassilon.
And the black leathery gloves of Rassilon.
That part's not. Wait, the black leather gloves are not necessarily Rassilon. So the doctor goes, so you were doing. He says, yes, but I'm wearing the coronet of Rassilon, so I can control people. You will kneel. And I was like, no. And he goes, and the doctor kneels. He just controls his mind. All right. In the meantime, the first doctor and Tegan have made it to the... hold on. Before that. The second... the second doctor and Brigadier are going to the passages. They're getting close to the tomb.
That's when we see all the cameos.
Yeah, then we start the extra cameos. So they're getting close to the tomb, and their minds are being affected. The mind of Rassilon is actually trying to push them away.
It's like 4 people showed up to the set one day, and they're like, oh, you missed roll call, but we can still fit you in here, and we'll stick you guys in the scene here.
So they see the same doctor and the Brigadier see Jamie, who the Brigadier met, and Zoe, who the Brigadier also met, actually. And Jamie's like, don't come any closer. And you can tell Jamie's older, and that's fine. We don't mess with the aging of the doctors. We ignore it, of the actors. Jamie and Zoe's always wearing bubble wrap. Yeah. You know. And
just a bubble wrap dress for no reason. We also saw...
but first, Jamie's like, no, don't come any closer. There's a force field. You'll kill us. Doctor, don't do it. Brigadier, don't do it. And Doctor's like, wait a second. How could you remember me? When they sent you two back, they wiped your minds. So you're not real. And the doctor moves in and they disappear. The same time, the third doctor, right?
Yeah, Elizabeth Shaw, Mike Yates.
Bumps into, Colonel Yates?
I don't know.
I think it was Colonel Yates.
Well, he got in trouble because he summoned a bunch of dinosaurs. So
he probably got bumped out. Oh, yeah.
Dishonorably discharged.
Mike Yates and Elizabeth Shaw. Yates. Yeah. Mike Yates and Elizabeth Shaw, and once again, we don't care.
Military court trial, Mike Yates and Elizabeth Shaw.
So he sees them, but he is not convinced that they are them. Because they try to block him from going back to Sarah Jane. And he's thinking to himself, no, these people want me to go forward and divide us. They don't want me to go to Sarah Jane, so they're not real, because the people I knew of who knew Sarah Jane, which they did, Yates did. Elizabeth Shaw actually did not.
Yeah.
Would want me to go help her. And so then they disappear as illusions. But the actual actors for all 4 of them were there and playing their roles. Like I said, this is a greatest hits tour. So, and the first Doctor doesn't have this problem. He deals with the Master with the chessboard. So the first Doctor makes it into the chamber, the tomb of Rassilon, the actual tomb, with Tegan, and he starts trying to figure out this obelisk with these cuneiform letters on it.
Oh yeah. All like aquatic. They're all to the 3rd or 2nd power specifically.
But it looks like
because this is the ancient language of the time.
High Gallifreyan,
who always wrote in squares and cubes.
In the meantime, the 3rd Doctor shows up with Sarah Jane, and the first Doctor and the third Doctor are doing the same thing they did in the. Okay, the first three Doctors do the same bickering against each other they did in the three Doctors, back and forth. It's hilarious. Almost like the Three Stooges or somebody, Abbott and Costello. And they're looking at it, trying to figure everything out. In the background, while they're doing that, Sarah Jane Smith and Tegan Javanka are introducing themselves to each other and talking about how they're them, Then the second Doctor shows up with the Brigadier. And the Brigadier, the second Doctor goes, oh, they can't figure it out without me. And he pushes them aside. Let me see what I can figure out. And they're all three trying to figure out the inscriptions. And the Brigadier's like, yeah. The moment they find something, special to do, we're like in the background, literally. And it's so hilarious because it's so self-aware.
Yeah.
And
the Brigadier's like, what are they doing? He goes, they're translating something now. Excuse me, they'll get it wrong if I don't help.
Yeah, exactly.
He goes, all right, okay.
At the same time, the TARDIS has been surrounded by Cybermen trying to detonate it, blow it up.
With these, it took them all this time.
To set that up.
So like massive charges around the TARDIS.
Well, and they were time scooped. Where the hell did they get this equipment?
Yeah. They have a motherboard chip somewhere that they're manufacturing explosives. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, if anybody can manufacture explosives from nothing, the Cybermen would have the knowledge.
That's true.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So. They're about to detonate and blow up the TARDIS.
It took them so long because they went out and mined their own zinc deposits. Forged
their own limestone. And,
so by the time they get it all set up and ready to blow...
To be fair, this whole thing seems like it takes place within about a single day.
Yeah.
So...
Conveniently, you're...
So the TARDIS is trying to get to the tower, but it got locked down. And they need to turn off the controls inside the Tower of Rassilon to allow the TARDIS to escape. So they go to the control panel near the tomb inside the Tower of Rassilon, and the third Doctor goes, did you stop it? Did you break it? Oh yeah, reverse the polarity.
Hey.
Drink. Fun drinking game with that, which we've told you all about.
Of Rassilon could be its own drinking
game. Oh my gosh, easily. So, you'll have to add that to whatever list. So, the TARDIS escapes just as about to be blown up. But the TARDIS can't be blown up. For some reason, they were afraid it was going to be blown up. But we don't know if the same thing that turned off its ability to move also turned off its ability to protect itself. Some sort of force field removal. So, that may have actually been possible. So, TARDIS goes in there.
And the Cybermen could have been trying to blow up the planet for all we know.
Out come Turlo and Susan, because she sprained her ankle. Then the president of the Time Lords, what's his name? Barusa, and the fifth Doctor get there by transmat. Oh, no, wait. Before that, the Master shows up. Okay, so the Doctors... The first three figure out what's on the stuff. He's like, oh, he who wins shall lose. He who loses shall win. Well, what does that mean?
The game.
I told you. No. You said it, but what does it mean? And
I'll tell you later.
Yeah. They're talking about the game of Rassilon and all this stuff. He who takes the ring will gain immortality and all this. And the Master goes, aha. He comes out from behind the corner. It's exactly what I wanted to hear. And he's got his dildo shrinking ray. And he's like, okay, I am going to gain immortality. I came here to help you, but not terribly happy about it. I came here to help you, but this is what I want, immortality. Because he was promised, he doesn't have any more generations. And it's unlikely he'll be able to steal another body until the TV movie. And so he's like, I'm telling you the truth. So like, in fact, he stays in the same body till the TV movie. He's like, I want the immortality. And so the Doctor was like, you can't defeat us all. And he's like, oh, yes, I can. He's backing up. The Brigadier's kind of standing behind him, waiting for him to get in the perfect spot. And he goes, no, sir, you shan't. the Master turns around, the Brigadier goes, wham! Right here, the Master goes down. Yay, Brigadier. Yep. They
Still
kind of hog tie him.
Yeah.
With, looks like duct tape.
The Brigadier looks great because last time we saw him, he was looking pretty old, but I guess he's kind of laying something.
No. What happened was they put on some padding to make him look older on the old section, but he was looking still fit for the young section. It was just padding for that. And we do see him one more time after this in the main show. And I'm not counting the Cyberman
turned into a Cyberman
resurrection. I'm not counting that. But we'll see him again later on in the Sixth Doctor's.
Oh, that's good.
He skips the Fifth Doctor. Most people skip the Fifth Doctor. Most people want to skip the Fifth Doctor. No, Sixth Doctor. No, we see him again in the Seventh Doctor. We're on the Fifth Doctor, but the joke is most people skip the Sixth Doctor.
Is he not good?
It's that suit.
The suit's ridiculous.
He's there for 2 seasons. The first
That's
season,
a short Doctor.
the first season is actually pretty good. The second season is a mess because it's the trial of a Time Lord, and it's 14 half-hour episodes. That's it.
Oof.
And it's really, really frenetic and chaotic and doesn't really work. But
looking forward to that one.
But no. Things get better in the Seventh Doctor, but by that point they'd already canceled the show. Alright, so anyway, so the Brigadier takes out the Master. They kind of hog time. At that point, transmat in the Fifth Doctor and Barusa, and Barusa's like, "This is my destiny." He goes on the villain rant. The villain rant is slightly earlier. You know how long I've been manipulating the Time Lord. You know how long I've been in power, either behind the scenes or as president. But I would leave with my work not done. Oh, you want to be president throughout all your generations? No. Even if I did that, my work would not be half done. I want to be president forever. I want to gain the immortality. And he just goes on that Bond villain rant.
Yeah. You got your big bad villain standing there with the Infinity Stone. And the Guardians of the Galaxy, they start holding hands and
should have gone for the head.
Yeah, and then Quill's like, dancing, dance off, I'm distracting you.
So
they hold their hands and concentrate their mind power, and they kind of help Davison break the mind control.
Correct. The Fifth Doctor is being controlled by Barusa, but the doctors are like, the doctors are like, well, we can defeat you. And he says, no, you can't. And they concentrate. And they're like, come, join us. And Fifth Doctor's like, and finally he feels compelled and he joins them. And their focus of will breaks the mind control of Barusa over the Fifth Doctor.
Cane that he's holding.
Yeah.
He got from somewhere.
Yeah. And so the 4 doctors that are not time vortex, i.e. the Fourth Doctor, the other 4 are all standing there and they're mind battling Barusa, kind of in the way the Fourth Doctor did with oh god,
their telepathy match.
Yeah, it's telepathy match, and
it's happened a couple of times. We saw that with the Master during like that Matrix episode, and then also with like the hive mind intelligence. And then you see the Doctor's mind meld a couple of times.
Yes. It's just their psychic powers and things they can do. Exactly.
It's when they start writing in the fighting scene and some actors go, I don't want to do that. Just have me stand there like whoop, 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 whoop. And then
so they managed to stop Barusa from controlling them. And they're like, we're a match for you. He says, yeah, but you can't defeat me because I have the Coronet of Rassilon. Yeah. And then he goes, I will take the ring. And then they're like, no, we'll stop you. And then you hear a voice. And it's like, this is Rassilon. And the First Doctor goes, oops, it's out of our hands now.
Yeah.
Rassilon has spoken because Rassilon was entombed in the tomb. Even though he's immortal, he's still controls things, and that was his mind pushing people back. So.
And we finally get to see Rassilon, this big, mysterious, all-powerful Time Lord. And you're gonna think he's gonna.
He looks semi-Genghis Khan-ish.
Yeah, super cool, right? With
the Anglo-Saxon version of Genghis Khan.
With the mega mask, now it's just like kind of a portly, jovial, chops and a mustache.
A bit of a Genghis Khan beard. So
he goes, "Oh, howdy."
No, he doesn't say that. Right, so he goes, "Okay, who is here to play the game of Rassilon?" And Bruce is like, "I do. What do you claim?" And he goes, "Immortality." He's like, "Do you really want immortality?" He's like, "Yes." "You can still walk away. Do you really want immortality?" They should have told him something, And he goes, "Yes." He's then like, claim my ring.
Choose the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's this one.
Yeah. Yeah, you chose poorly.
What is your favorite color?
Yeah.
my favorite color.
So Rassilon takes the ring. And, sorry, not Rassilon. Barusa takes the ring off of Rassilon's hand. And Rassilon looks and goes, "You can still walk away from this. You can still choose leave," he says.
He turns to the other Time Lords and goes,
"The doctors.
Is this the one that deserves immortality?" And they go, no. And Hartnell's like, "Yeah, that guy."
The first doctor, not Hartnell. The first doctor's like, yep. The rest of them are like, "We're not his servants." And the first doctor's like, "You know what? This guy deserves it. Give him immortality." And Barusa puts on the ring to gain immortality. The problem is that immortality, you're immortal just like Rassilon is, but you are stuck as a face on the side of a sarcophagus for all eternity. Probably conscious, but unable to do anything except see the boredom that is before you. And that is a curse.
He is immortal.
He's immortal.
I thought immortality was a curse.
Yeah.
He goes, "Oh no, it is. Enjoy the view."
So then Rassilon looks at the doctors and goes, "Does any of the rest of you want immortality?" They're like, Nope, we're good."
And they turn to Hartnell and they go, "You knew that was going to happen. You figured out the riddle." And he goes, "We reverse the polarity." And he goes, because he who loses will win, and he who wins will lose.
So they just
figured something like that would happen.
Alyssa called it. She's like three. She's gonna go with one face on the floor. Yeah. So
on the arc there.
Yeah. They asked Rassilon, "We just want to go back to our original time zone. Can you save the Fourth Doctor from the time vortex and just send us all back?" He's like,
"Are you sure?
It'll be done.
Are you sure you don't want to live in all eternity in the tomb of Rassilon, being a face of Rassilon?
We're good.
On the Ark of Rassilon, here in the cave of Rassilon,
in the Tower of Rassilon, in the Dead Zone of Rassilon." They're like, "No, we're good." So everyone says their goodbyes. The first Doctor and Susan.
Could you imagine trying to navigate like in early when Rassilon was presiding over Gallifrey? It's like, well, how do you get to Rassilon Avenue? You go right up Rassilon
Street, take a left, take Rassilon Boulevard. Oh my gosh!
Once they locked him up, they're like, "We gotta change some names around here."
Some dictators do that. They really do.
They like their own names.
Some of those weird African countries, when you get a dictator like Libya or something, what was his name? Gaddafi. Yeah. This is Gaddafi City, and this is Gaddafi Square, and this is Gaddafi Olympic Pool, and this is Gaddafi Stadium, and it's just like, dude, just stop that.
I hear they have good coffee.
Gaddafi. Wait, you realize Holden?
Yeah, in Australia.
No. Holden, you live at Hayden.
Hayden.
There's a street
Holden, Hayden.
right by.
Oh, really?
Called Hayden.
Oh, Hayden Street.
Yeah, Hayden Street. You're Holding on Hayden.
Yeah.
And I dropped you off. I was picking you up. I'm like, Hayden and Holden. Right.
I have a friend named Gary that lives right off Gary Street.
Oh, there you go. So, the first, everybody says their goodbyes. The first Doctor and Susan go into the TARDIS. Then the second Doctor and the Brigadier go into the TARDIS. Then the third Doctor and Sarah Jane go into the TARDIS. This leaves our normal crew.
The TARDIS.
This leaves our normal crew of the fifth Doctor, Tegan and Turlough. And Tegan's like, wait, are we going to take them all home? Are we all leaving together? And the Doctor goes, no, wait. And here's the TARDIS. You see a special effect moving a TARDIS this way with the TARDIS sound. The special effect moving the TARDIS this way with the TARDIS sound. Well, the TARDIS stays. Another special effect moving the TARDIS this way with the TARDIS sound. So
I
the
like
other
the
TARDIS
third one. They're like, should we make it go a third direction? They go, just use the first asset.
Yeah. Don't go straight up. Just go there.
They're like, we're gonna have to make a whole other asset. Just use the first one.
So the TARDIS splits up into TARDISes. Each
TARDIS.
Doctor takes their plural of the TARDIS wherever, drops everybody off, and the Doctor, Tegan, and Turlough head in. Cut scene where the fourth Doctor and Romana 2 from Shada show them escaping as well.
Yeah, wrestling goes off. I'll help you all get home. They go, what about the fourth Doctor?
Oh, I know about
He's
it.
like, he'll get home too. And it cuts to, him and Romana 2 roaming around Italy or wherever it was that they were, running away from cops or something. Or sneaking under a fence.
No. Shada takes place in Cambridge.
Oh, they're
so they were doing Cambridge, yeah. So at that point, the Doctor's like, they all leave.
Green the moon hits your eye.
Like a big beats by. Well, they're punting down the river and that, and Shada and the cutscenes for this from Shada, the first one anyway. So at that point, Lady Flava shows up with the guard, transmits in, and she goes, Doctor, to the fifth Doctor. Okay, so what happened to Barusa? It's like, oh, he's indisposed. Doesn't say, he got turned into that face right there, and he's stuck for eternity. He's like, nah, he's indisposed. He's gone. She's like, oh, well, guess what? We've had an emergency meeting with the Time Lords. And, you were president once. And basically we made you president again. We've elected you. So apparently the High Council is like the conclave of cardinals in the Roman, the Catholic Church. Yeah. Where they get together and elect a pope as opposed to the people. Yeah. Same thing here. They get together, they elect a president, So he goes, well, so this is the second time the fourth Doctor was president, and now he's president. He's like, that's great. Tell you what, you go back, tell them everything's cool. Guards go with her, and she's like, well, Doctor, he says, oh, no, I'm president. Please address me by my title. She goes, president? And he's like, yes. He says, what are you going to do? He says, I'm going to head over there with my TARDIS, and you are in charge till I get back. Yeah.
So he says, I'll meet you there. She goes, but, and he goes, make sure you escort her. I, Lord President, I'm asking you to escort her to her.
You have to obey my orders.
To do her duties, and I'll meet you there.
And they all go in the, and the Doctor, Nissa and Tegan and Turlough go in the TARDIS, and the TARDIS takes off. And Turlough's like, oh, so we're gonna break up? We have to disband? He says,
Tegan's
why?
like, I guess this is goodbye.
Why? He's like, why? And they're like, well, you got to be president of the Time Lords, and I should go to my home planet, and they're gonna find a working TARDIS takes back. He's like, what are you talking about? Well, you're president now. He's like, yeah. Well, you need to rule him. He's like, no.
So I put her in charge until I get there.
Until I come back.
Say when I was gonna get there.
And Tegan goes, so you're not going back? You're going to run away from your people in a broken down TARDIS?
Yep.
And the Doctor, in pure fan service, almost, not quite, just almost looks at the camera like this.
And he goes, you the Hartnell, he did the,
not directly to the camera,
face,
but he's like 5 degrees off the camera. He goes, why not? That's the way it all started. Cut. End of the episode and story.
It all started.
Yep.
The end.
Pure fan service, pure fun, pure wonderful for every last bit of it. I just wish Tom Baker would have been in it, and Jamie would have had that bigger part that would have come with it, and then it would have been a bit longer. But other than that, it's perfect.
It's pretty great. It was like the Avengers of the Doctors, right? It's everything you want to see. It was the Spider-Verse of Doctor Who. It had all the
essentially,
all the favorites and the fan service.
Each of the 10 anniversary episodes, which the 10th and 20th were official. The 30th was not official. I'll explain that later. The 40th didn't happen because it was on hiatus, and the 30th it was on hiatus, but it almost happened anyway. The 50th and now the 60th are these big giant ass celebrations of the show, and it's wonderful. What questions do you have for this story?
So the 5 Doctors, 25th anniversary special.
20th
anniversary special. A whole cornucopia of who's and heroes and villains of the show all make their appearance. Yet we had a couple of pointed remarks towards some of the older Doctors, and then at the end, Davison, after they all leave, he says, "Good, I've changed as a person.
I'm not the man I used to be.
Man."
Thank goodness."
Yes, and you made that pointed remark. Why do you think he said that?
Because the show moves on, and he's glad that he's the Doctor as opposed to them.
I feel like it was more them kind of... how I saw it was I feel like they kind of did a disservice to Hartnell's Doctor, as in he was an old school, very classic gentleman, and he always had that avuncular status in the show of it was very, retro, and he said, here's the guys, they're the muscle of the show, and he turned to his granddaughter Susan and be like, you're to stay on the TARDIS, and they went out of their way to point out that was the way Hartnell was as the Doctor, and they go, they wrote in to this 5 Doctor special a scene to make Hartnell look sexist, way more so than he ever did during his previous tenure.
They do accentuate it, and here's the sad part. They bring the first Doctor back in Twice Upon a Time, the final serial of the 12th Doctor.
And they're still throwing jabs at him like that?
It's worse.
It's worse.
It's actually, they do the same thing, but make it even more pointed and outdated.
Yeah. It felt especially wrong because they're taking something that maybe you could interpret as a flaw, that he was older and more curmudgeon-y, and they specifically chose to interpret that as a sexist attitude, and then that's how they recreated it when they wrote that into the special.
Right, it's lazy writing,
making him sexist.
Here's a guy
more so than he had ever been before.
Here's the problem: they ignore the times. The British are fairly traditional and conservative, in general. Yeah. Okay, so here's somebody who played the Doctor in the 1960s, who grew up in the 1930s or 20s, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 20s. In a very conservative society. Mm-hmm. His attitudes are going to reflect his age. Mm-hmm. Both the age he grew up in and his physical age. Yeah. He is going to be a reflection of the attitudes around him. And to hold that against him is wrong.
Society was different.
Society was very different.
They had different roles then. It was during that era. There's the war. Right. They're like, we must protect the women. And then there's this big movement of women's rights in Europe, right? There's a lot of feminists that are like,
the same thing here, but yeah.
And then they go back and they look at Hartnell, who was raised during this different time, who operated differently.
And was written.
And they went out of their way to disassociate themselves with him. They're like, look, he used to be on the show, we acknowledge it, but we're disassociating ourselves from from these kind of interactions, and they specifically
we're going to point this out.
Yeah.
We don't like it, but
they made him more sexist than he ever was in his tenure as the Doctor. And they go, look, we're not doing this anymore. This isn't us.
Right, and they do that again later when they bring the first Doctor back again.
I feel like that's why Davison was going back and going, thank goodness I'm not the man I was before. I feel like it was something that BBC was under a lot of pressure from a lot of women's rights activists going and flipping through the catalogs and going, look, this
once
TV
again
show character.
It was okay. This was done in the 80s, and this was after the 70s feminist movement. And I mean, to be fair, the British are fairly liberal, generally speaking, compared to America.
Yeah.
And they may have succumbed to that, but it gets worse in the modern era for that very same thing. You will see it again.
It kind of repeats, except instead of just Hartnell being this older, curmudgeon-y, more traditional person, they kind of do that with the entire sex of the Doctor. They're like, oh, look, he used to be a man, now he's a woman. She goes, oh, I have upgrades.
I hate that line.
Yeah, it kind of...
That episode is really good, except for that line, but the rest of the episode is good enough that I can forgive that line, even though I hate it.
I just don't like how they cemented the canonization of this certain viewpoint of the first Doctor when they rewrote this.
Agreed.
I feel like it's kind of tainted who Hartnell was as the Doctor.
So, there's a scene in...
Say that.
There's a scene in Series 12.
Hartnell.
Okay? The modern stuff. Series 12. Where the Master shows up. And the Doctor is female at that point. Alright, Whittaker. And the 13th Doctor. And she has a white male companion, older. The actor's the best actor amongst them. She has an Indian female, Indian female, as a companion. She's supposed to be a cop, but almost never comes into play, which is sad because she had a lot of unrealized potential.
We came so close to having that cop companion, and then he was there for like the TV, rewritten as a cop in the TV movie.
Yeah. And
so I always wanted to see
rest in peace, Bernard Cribbins. Yeah. Rest in peace.
I just wanted to see that companion with the bully club.
And there's a young black man.
Billy Club.
Billy Club. There's a young black man who is a companion of the 13th Doctor, and he's the
strong and silent type.
No, he's the step grandson of the white guy.
Okay.
So the white guy was married to
the cop,
his grandmother.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a relationship there, but the Master shows up. He goes, "I'm the Master," and the black companion goes,
"Yeah, problems."
The Master?
Excuse me.
And it's they don't dwell on that, and they never bring it up. But it's like his face, like the Master. It's like ooh, and you're like, I could see how that could be a problem. So like, ooh, yeah. It's just a little bit of oh, yeah, okay, yeah, ouch.
I feel that same way when we talk about landlords. It just feels like a very old phrase because we don't refer to property owners as lords anymore. But it's still, it's your landlord, you owe him rent. It's like, that's a very high title nowadays. Even the guy that owns like this complex, and he's like, yes, I am the lord of this rundown apartment complex.
Okay.
They're like, here are your taxes, my liege.
Well, I
maybe just like
there are some terms.
Renter.
There are some terms that have transcended their origins, and that's fine because language changes constantly.
I still call it an icebox.
Yeah,
I heard that's a pretty old phrase.
Yeah, it is.
You're not supposed to call them that anymore.
Yeah, it is what it is, man. It's a freezer. But all right, any other questions?
That was the main one. The other main question I always have to ask is in this gigantic Who's Who anniversary special, right? We have all these villains the most popular of them. You know, the heroes and villains. We get the most popular companions, the most popular villains. So obviously they want to take this time to kind of capitalize on their viewership there to cement the next popular villain.
This is just a big celebration, but
yeah, the Rastalon robot warrior of Rastal. Rastalon warrior robot.
It has nothing to do with Rastalon.
He comes back, right?
Okay.
He has to.
Tegan comes back. Well, Tegan's still a companion.
She's still
there. He comes back. Brigadier comes back.
He comes back.
K9 comes back.
Yeah, he does.
Sarah Jane Smith comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Susan has yet to come back.
Oh, no way.
Although the actress is still alive, and she shows up in. She has a cameo in the docudrama about the First Doctor.
Uh-huh.
But Susan is the companion. Doesn't come back.
Don't tell me Mike Yates comes back.
Never.
Okay.
Ever.
He
wasn't even companion.
Right. I'm surprised he even came back in this one.
Yeah, so am I. There should have been. There should have been Sergeant Benton. That really should have been Sergeant
Could have been Benton.
I don't know what he was doing at the time, but there should have been Sergeant Benton.
Benton's been out for a while. Yeah. It's like Yates took Benton's place as the.
Elizabeth Shaw never comes back.
Really?
Zoe never comes back. Jamie.
He does come back, right? For the next special?
No, not
really.
Yet. Well, no.
Oh,
Jamie does come back.
Oh, good.
Not for a special, but he comes back in the Two Doctors.
Oh.
Okay. Romana doesn't come back. She completes her role in Shada, but that's a retro completion, so she doesn't come back.
Too?
Well, either.
Okay.
Alright, the Daleks come back, Sergeant come back. The Rastan Warriors never come back.
Dang.
The Master comes back.
It was so.
Barusa doesn't come back.
Does the Yeti come back?
No, the Yeti have not come. Wait. I don't think the Yeti have come back. There's a small chance they had a cameo in the Pandorica opens, but I don't think so.
Oh,
there's a bunch of bad guys. It's like the scene in Star Wars at the cantina.
Mm-hmm.
We got a whole bunch of bad guys. They might have been in there, but I don't think so.
He hires all the bounty hunters.
Yeah. They might have been in there, but I don't think so. So I don't think they come back. But
that's great.
The First Doctor comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Different actor again, Filch from Harry Potter. Second Doctor does come back in the Two Doctors with Jamie. The Third Doctor comes back in the 30th anniversary non-especially canon special that was supposed to be the big thing, but ended up being a Children in Need special because of Fox. The Fourth Doctor comes back eventually as the Curator. Tom Baker does.
Mm-hmm.
And the Fifth Doctor comes back a few times.
Right?
Yeah.
No specials. Alrighty. Well, stick a bow on her. I think we're done. Join us next time.
Well,
when we watch.
We were supposed to do more Heroes and Villains today, but we decided to do this instead because you were back to drinking. Alright, so the Five Doctors is done.
Yay.
Next time is Warriors of the Deep, the first serial of the 21st season. And so this is the first special that's outside the seasons.
Right? Yeah.
So should we include that with the 21st season when we do the best?
That's a good question. Yeah. I don't know which one we'd include it.
Well, we've already done the 20th season best of.
So I guess if we are.
So we've got to include it with the 21st. Although we could just assume that's going to be the best and just say it's the best and move on and then do the 21st on its own.
Okay, that sounds. Yeah.
So the best special of the entirety of the first run of Doctor Who is this one because it's the only one. So so we'll just do the 20th stuff on its own, which
20 and 1/2 season.
No, just the 20th. The 21st season is 7 serials, 6 of which are the 5th Doctor, and 1 of which is the 6th Doctor.
Oh.
They switched Doctors
at the end of the season.
Towards the end of the season, but not at the season break.
Huh.
Yeah, but the Sixth Doctor cereal is not good. But there's the main group, and here's us.
We're catching up.
We're getting so close to being there, so you can come to bad movie night.
So make sure you tune in next week.
And we'll see you next week. Have fun.
Warriors of the Deep. What was it?
Yeah, Warriors of the Deep.
Warriors of the Deep.
Guess who we get to see?
The dudes. The bad guys?
Yeah, guess who the bad guys are?
The, what are they called? The water people? The aquatic race of Terrans? What are Oh, Ice Warriors. Do we get to see the Ice Warriors?
No.
Oh, who is it? The Warriors of the Deep. Tell us. Do that next time to see
the Warriors of the Deep.
Warriors of the Deep.
Warriors of the Deep.
Yeah, and who do we see? Well, you brought it up. Who is it? Oh, those guys. What are they called? Those aren't the Terrans? Terrans. What are they called?
No. Hold on.
The fish people.
Hold on. I'm reading this. I'm forgetting. Silurians.
Hey, Silurians.
We see the Silurians again.
Hey.
It's been a while since the Third Doctor. We see him again next week. See you next week for the Silurians. Oh, it'll be my birthday episode.